very good to have. I think that's one of the most important things we can focus on as events because one really bad liability situation at any event can affect all of us. It can have a very big ripple effect out to all of our events. So it's very critical for us to be focusing on as one of our major issues. So I think that was really good. Definitely learned a lot there and shared some information based on that. I think one thing that I would like to see next year is a better ability for ad hoc breakout sessions on certain topics. Because as we are here for a couple of days, we learn what everyone's doing and realize, oh, we're all doing kind of this one function within our event, and we want to have like a little meeting or something. So have some better ways to facilitate those and spaces for those. You know, I just had to set up at lunch today with some city planners, and we ended up moving into a hallway just to have some space because we kept getting kind of shoved around. We were just trying to find some place to just end up talking. I didn't really have a way to communicate that out to people either. So you know, maybe we can.
Maybe it's formalizing the ability to have informal, good conversations. So thinking about the structure and specific times and suggesting when those might be.
Yeah, but one thing just to see if this kind of flies with you, one thing that we do at our Burning Man staff retreats is a format called an unconference. So there's structured time where I can say, I'd really like to talk about program 2014, but there's many conversations that will be happening. So you give people windows to slot in whatever comes up for them.
Right. And I mean, one suggestion would be to have an extra room that's available with tables kind of not facing all one direction, but like little areas, groupings for tables, and like assign it to you. We can actually see, like, as it goes in the day, something's right. I'm going to do this at this time, write it down, and people can think, oh, that's cool, that's relevant to me, so I'm going to go there and catch up with these people, and know that there's a space that's going to be going on. And just
create a center camp board out by the man,
yeah.
you know, so that you can scribble the things you want to have down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to go?
Yeah, that'd be great. First off, Spark. Yeah, South Florida, we have a duplex cinema that one of very active partners. You know, we do movies twice a year. We do like once or twice a year. So Spark is definitely. You want to take a look at that, break it down. One of the things that I was Doug from South Florida. One of the things that I was thrilled with this time around was the dialogue around art. South Florida, we're lacking art participation. You know, it's still the party, it's still the music, and I think that actually reaching outside our burner community to communicate with other artists that have no idea that we're even here, and going, yeah, you can get an art grant, come join us, to maybe create something super collaborative and, you know, bigger, better, more.
Yeah, Dave and then Misha.
One of the things I was thinking about as I was listening around, lots of different groups have very different views of what they should do when they have money left over from their events. And a lot of people seem to try and give it away to as many people as quickly as possible. And I'm really concerned that somewhere down the road, as we get bigger, some expenditure up, you're going to get a $20,000 bill that's going to bankrupt you if you don't have some financial backing we mentioned. And maybe there's a cap about financial planning going forward. There's a lot of people
Yeah. Burning Man shut it. Yeah, I definitely think that more about money and responsible financial planning. We had wanted to put responsible financial practices as one of the workshops because it's very clear that that's a need. That's probably one of many money-based conversations we could do.
I'll give you an example. Is that someone managed to get installed their art project in our storage from nowhere, which required $18,000 worth of damage to the buildings. And we have to do that back. So I'm sure of ouch. When these things happen. Yeah.
Misha.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we gathered over the lunch with a bunch of people and started to talk about languages and about this topic. And we actually like said we want to do it, so we will start to first share our files and Google Docs and so on. We will start to translate things, like translate it from the formal English, which is used right now. And sometimes it's really hard to translate from this English into our other languages. So first to translate it to like a little bit easier language, English, and then to our other languages, and just share our like thoughts and actually start to be multilingual about these things, the Burning Man and about other stuff, and to have like site of nowhere in as many languages as possible, and also implement the other languages to Burning Man website.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm going to Jim and then
The whole conference is great, but what I'm really excited about is the community grant BWB meeting. There were about 14 of us there. What we agreed to do, yes, there's a few people who are the voters and the judges, but we're all going to be part of the process. We're all going to be able to look at the applications. We're all going to be able to understand why applications were accepted, why applications were not accepted. And really what we did is we took that workshop, and it's not ending when we walk out the building here today. The 14 of us are going to stay in email contact, conference call contact, and it creates a whole new group of people working together.
Yeah.
And at the end of the conference, and I think that's very exciting.
Nice. So what you liked about it was that there was kind of a built-in follow-up that would
Correct.
keep you connected to that thread
Yes,
of
it's that
learning.
ongoing connectivity to where we're going with the people who we work with here.
And to have a say on how they
Community
do
grant,
things.
Free Loves, Chicago grant. Yeah, and the $500 is coming from Burning Man.
Oh, burn that word. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Love it.
Okay, first the broad thing is I think the theme this year has been peer-to-peer on so many of the things. And so one idea, kind of bouncing, like half a step off the unconference, is perhaps reserving lunchtime one of the days for caucuses and have people kind of sign up and just like have the people who work on ticketing or volunteer coordination and just have them have the lunchtime, encourage them to have lunchtime table together, or the big cities or the internationals, and so based on the idea of caucus. And then I have my inspiration as a challenge, and Rasmus probably going to agree with my you will help out with this. We have about how many decompression events now around the world? 40, 50, whatever.
How many, Steven-ish?
Probably about 30.
30. So if every one of them contributes one PowerPoint slide with a standard format of their location, the name of their city, a small description of their event, and a couple photos, and then all of them can either show it or download and print it out and have us display it theirs. The people in the local regions who may never make it to the playa, who may never make it to another regional, know that they're part of another network. And if they're at this decon in Chicago, there's some people doing the same thing in Saskatchewan and in China and things like that. And just a real simple way to have it where everyone can feel like they're part of this world network.
Well, you're great at visual displays. You've made some beautiful ones at Media Mecca. I'd like to see what comes out of your brain. Matt, and then Tiara, and then Platt.
Does every regional concept have a regional event? Do they have an overnight camp out type of event?
Some of them have potlucks and things. No, not everybody has a decom or a camp out. We just require that they bring people together once a year in person. In some places where the regional contact has started out, they can't even do that the first year. Or sometimes they'll just say, let's all meet in the cafe and share pictures. So those don't end up on the official event list.
I mean, even that could work for
They're sharing
events also,
photos,
yeah.
absolutely. We have, there's no shortage of that kind of material. It would just be a matter of gathering it. So, and I would love to see, instead of just decoms, a complete range of what's going on, including some of the amazing art projects that we heard about here, to share that information.
Because one of the things I've noticed is that people introduce themselves and I have no idea where the events are. So instead of telling me where they're from, they tell me their event, but I don't know where that is.
If it makes you feel any better, I get confused also.
So that's a point for next year. So back with
Isn't that what the new website setup is supposed to be about? It's your region, your events, your stuff that's going on. I mean, it's going to help.
Yes.
And then collaborative onto the calendar and stuff like that. It's just a matter of getting that going.
I just want to say I forgive the sound. I think that there's another conference just starting. But just imagine that we're on the playa and we're having a meeting in San Diego. So there would be cacophonous noise around us. So we would have to do this anyway. Tiara.
This is more structural than specific to content, but I find that I have a much shorter time attention span on the third day of a conference.
Oh yeah.
And I also think that there are a lot of maybe smaller topics, and I wonder if Sunday might be a great chance to do more like 30, 45, 60-minute things as opposed to the 90-minute span. And maybe even a way to repeat some of the really key topics, or maybe re-present a shorter summary of them. So, you know, so if you wanted to get fired and you couldn't, do a highlights repeat or something.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm very interested in the Burner Business Bureau. I've been working on it myself for years, and I want to make a combination of Etsy, Yelp, and LinkedIn. And it was great to hear various people bring up different ideas about how to connect with businesses, and I had a lot of great talks one-on-one with people on how to further that. So if anyone has any ideas on how to support your community financially.
You need to talk.
Okay. Burner Business Bureau. If you're interested, talk to me.
Yes.
Jamie.
If there's a way that it's more event dependent on than anything else, could there be like a constant whiteboard out in the hallway that one example of something that might need is that we can curate a list of the types of events. I know we've got some in different areas, but other things that over the weekend people can add to as they come out of an event, they might get new perspectives on. For going back home, maybe make it some sort of a thing that people should consider, whether a one-page PDF or printed thing for each event, so that I can go back and even though what notes I might have captured, I can give that to everybody in my community and say, if you're interested in this to know more, get in touch and I can facilitate other conversations that way. Consider maybe having a tech track or some that are dedicated to ticketing is where that sort of went towards. But and a question that somebody else had raised to me is, are you aware that half of the site was public and was meant to be that?
What?
Yeah.
Half of the site.
Stand up so we can hear you.
The Halfwheel website, was it intended to be public? And the person raised a question of if we're using their full name, they didn't want to have any conversation on Halfwheel because of their concerns profile-wise based on their job. So just, is there a way to make sure that it's only accessible by logins for technique?
I think that's definitely something, we were just using Pathable for the first time, but that raises an interesting question. We wanted staff members to be able to look and see what was going on, but I don't think we thought about that being like a bad thing for folks. So that's definitely good feedback.
I logged in on the wrong browser yesterday. I wasn't logged in at all, and I could see like all the discussions going. I mean everything's completely open there, the full name. So
At least have them post back up, but the robots.txt don't search this for the event, so it can't be searchable by name.
Okay.
Thank you, Rosie. What's your
I have Jeannie. Zoltan. Then
So that was the delta for the Pathable. I thought it was an amazing format for registration and for knowing what was going on. And then the updates with the emails to keep us informed. I thought it was beautiful.
Whoever did that.
Yeah, nice work.
kudos. It was a collaboration. Cynthia was really our point person with Pathable, and it was Kay Morrison that brought the idea to the table, and it was really, I think for us, a response to previous years, folks not really having a forum to pre-plan. We always had an announce list, but it was hard for people to say, okay, I want to do, a Pacific Northwest meetup, and this was a good forum for that. We also want you to be able to continue the conversation, so we have that site for at least a year. So we're hoping that a lot of these threads and materials can be shared there. Next, I have Misha.
Yeah, well, speaking about 2014, I really would love to have this kind of conference in Europe because a lot of folks cannot come here, and it's just like so inspirational, and we need meet and like
So
do
we
this
should-
stuff.
Tell us where and when and what kind of content we need, or ask us how we can help. Because I think that the conversations that I've had so far, there's different opinions on where you hold it and if this type of content would even resonate, et cetera, et cetera. We've got to deal with language issues, et cetera. So if you or you could find a crew to start to.
Yes, I will.
Okay. I know you got a lot going on, but
No, but this is really important. So,
yeah, I completely agree.
Yes.
Okay. You may have a collaborator here in Dave.
Yeah.
Write your names down. Okay, I'm gonna go through this deck. I'm gonna hold hands, hold hand, not hold hands, stop hands, just for a minute, because I do want to talk a bit more about that and how we can have this in other cities to get some feedback specifically on that topic, because I think it's a pretty relevant one. I'm gonna go to Stuart.
In terms of event logistics, I think one thing that would be useful is if there is a conference room that is dedicated for emergent conversations, because there are lots of little, like, we need to have a breakout on this that kind of occurs, and if you end up doing it in the hallways or, you know, or in a bar, you know, sometimes there are very productive conversations in the bar, but you know, it doesn't work for everyone. So if there be a conference room for
Okay.
What about
So next door, next is the tribal leadership class.
And they're having some fun.
They're gonna be doing a lot of exercises, so right now we're temporarily quiet while we're getting mics. We're gonna get
Okay.
that again.
Thank you.
Let's finish this.
test it out.
Check. It works. Okay. You want to pass one of these out?
Yeah, you're next.
Okay, really?
So I didn't introduce myself before. I'm from Boston, Fireflyers Collective Board of Directors. That's our little New England region member. To echo Misha's point a little bit, I love coming here today, but maybe in the future it would be cool if we did a U.S. conference that's not on the West Coast. We could do East Coast, we could do Midwest, just for a change. You know, it's neat to go to a different place, and there's lots of different places we could go.
Do you want to put together suggestions?
Hawaii.
Miami.
Why not?
I haven't thought about it that far. I just wanted to throw it out there. But you know, if you want to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But the point I wanted to make was, I think to echo the tech talk point earlier and expand on that, I think a lot of the regional burns, there are some where their ticket demand does not exceed supply, but there are a lot that really do. And I think after a few years of them doing their thing and Burning Man doing its thing, next year would be a great time to have a forum conversation about all of the different, survey all of the different ticketing solutions that the regionals have come up with, and have a great talk about what works, what doesn't, and hope that the EMHQ is listening in case there are things they can learn from that. Because I think there's a lot of wisdom that's been gathered across the regions on that.
Gloria?
I, first of all, had an amazing weekend at the new regional Gloria from Los Angeles. I'm the new regional contact. I'm so grateful to be here. It's been amazing. I particularly loved the fundraising channel. It was really amazing and fantastic, and lots of amazing info. I did not want to derail the conversations that were happening in there with my want for more information. But if there was a part 2 or a different segment about smaller budgets, $5,000 to $40,000. We don't want to forget about our emerging artists who are looking for some help that will eventually be some of our, temple builders or whatever. They're still getting their groundwork and they need help with them too.
We're talking somewhat about events right now. I'd like to just cut out a section around fundraising in this forum as well, and how we might look at creating a series of conversations around it.
Oh wait, so that's where we kind of held the hands. It is definitely our desire to hold the conference in another space, but realistically, it costs so much money to do this. And I'm curious how much people would pay to come, because I just want to be fully transparent. It costs us over $350 a person. So if we have all the, and that includes, you know, volunteers as well. So if we have all the regional contacts not pay, the speakers not pay, of them there were 70, and then the guests pay $100 because we want to keep it low. I mean, it's basically we're absorbing most of the cost. So we would love to do it other places, but we have to be smart about fundraising so that it's sustainable. Because we would love to do this all the time. I'm holding. Oh wait, I guess I have to take hands because I just asked you guys a question. It's Sunday.
Well, I want to say one other thing too. Like, it started with, can we do this in Europe? Yes, we can. Can we do this on the East Coast? Yes, we can. We just got to figure out the logistics on cost accepted business model or whatever you want to call that, of being able to make it happen. The other thing is there may be convenings that look a little bit different than this. It may be that, you know, Seattle is going to do a fundraiser, a one-day fundraising gathering or something like that. Who knows? But it doesn't have to exactly resemble the context that we have here for the GLC. So if you've got thoughts around that, specific topics, education, fundraising, event production, whatever it might be, it could be something very different from the format of this. I'd like to support that.
And I would say we did want to move the conference to Las Vegas. Yeah, we thought it would be interesting, also a unique opportunity to showcase First Fridays, which is thriving there. So hence our finding a parallel more locally for this time around. What we found was it was a lot to scale, so I took the question to the Meta Regionals Committee and said we can move it to Las Vegas and really have our focus be logistics and organizing, doing it somewhere else, but we decided as a group to focus this year on the development and upping the ante in terms of content, so that we had something that we were like more proud of to be able to take on the road. So I think if we could also have a point of feedback on the development of the tracks and things that you guys have seen that's been different, that we might want to keep going. Yeah, I'll take the hands. Okay. Leslie, then Zoltan.
Who's next?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can come on.
I just know you two are together.
I just wanted to say, I'm Corey from Las Vegas, and formerly New York. I was at the first regional gathering many moons ago, and this has come a long way, and it's fantastic where it's come from, and it gets better and better every year. I'd love to see a track on relationships and professionalism between each other, because a lot of people are new to group environments and working together, and that would be nice. And I love the badges, and this is sort of a silly nitpicky thing, but it's embarrassing to have to look down at someone's name and they can see you looking down at it. And there's a lot of people here I know, but I don't know their names, and I just would rather just maybe have it up here.
Those laminates. Yeah, those laminates are the bane of our existence, so I'm really happy you said that, because we're not going to do it like this again. I think we could even have things that you guys decorate that go here.
Large
That'd be fine.
print for the names. We need large print for the names.
Yes.
First thing is
Yeah, they're totally ineffective.
Buttons with names, like you can have like a lamb with more information, but just your name on a, like your nickname on a button that you can pin to whatever you're wearing. Even be like a costume you're at a night or whatever. It helps immensely. Something you always wear.
I think LED hats.
Okay, next we have Zoltan.
Just about the funding for the GLC and some help with that is that we've included in our nonprofit budget a GLC, well, that was a summit, GLC component. Just because like our main revenue from I think most of us is our main regional events. It generates a lot of revenue, and everybody's always talking about, oh, we want to get rid of this revenue because we don't want to keep the money and all that. Well, this is a training exercise. This is an important thing that we need to have in our community, and I want every one of my leads to attend this thing eventually. So I think I'm happy to help pay for that. we have money set aside exactly for that reason. So we can help you guys as well.
Ben Resident.
Hey. Hey there, Breakout projects. So one thing that we've been starting to experiment with that's also cool, if you think about incentivizing folks, whether it's us and specific people in roles, or whether it's people who are curious and in the community and wanting to get more involved, is actually creating a container for this kind of conversation to potentially even happen at the events. And obviously that can be chaotic and that can cross-pollinate and brings all sorts of stuff up. But we've been experimenting on Playa the last year, we did it at Ideate this year. That's going to be a larger collaboration that's happening in this moment. But there seems to be a lot of interest. I was at Kiwi Bird and we had a whole Burning Man project workshop there in their center camp. That was super awesome. And it seems like there's just an incredible desire of a lot of folks to get involved in this conversation. And yet there isn't necessarily this model that has yet sort of been proven about how we can create a container inside of our events to facilitate this kind of conversation to happen. So if anyone's tried stuff like that out or wants to try stuff out and collaborate on that, I'd be really interested in doing that, because I think that that's going to start happening. I think that at our events we're going to start seeing these types of conversations happening on the regular, and as burners from around the world come to our different events and more cross-pollination happens. So
Let's actually give the details.
Formalized.
Make the invitation. Okay, so we've talked, we've got a space now. It's looking like on Playa to have these larger discussions, and talked to Megs about offering that up to the regional communities, to BWB, to Burning Nerds, to groups like General Assembly or Singularity University as well, so that we're not only taking internal groups and giving them a forum for knowledge sharing, ideas to action type conversations, but also some groups that are maybe from General Assembly bringing in business training classes if it's appropriate to the community, or Singularity on some of their technology on robotics or whatever we want. And we can co-create that content, I believe. We're going to try to set up some mechanisms for that. So that's in play, and we'd love to have your participation in that.
yeah, and also really quick on that, there's going to be programming. So if anyone has programming into this nature that you want to do on Playa potentially, get in touch with James or awesome.
Okay, I have Will Jason.
We'll chase.
Hi, everybody. Sorry if I came in late, so I don't know if this got covered, but speaking as a presenter, one of the things that I found challenging for my particular talks around fundraising and social networking was the vast difference in skill sets and sort of places along the spectrum on those topics. So there's people who are completely brand new to social networking. There are people who are very experienced with it and want this very specific thing. So it was kind of hard, and you kind of want to drive the truck right down the middle of it and cover everybody. But it's hard to get that done, and I feel like I'm leaving somebody behind in the process and not being as effective as I could. I don't have an answer for it or a solution, but it's a challenge. I mean, maybe it's like internal tracks along a specific topic, like the 101, 101, 201 kind of track, so that we can be more specific. And of course, that extends the length of your conference, and there's more talks, and blah, blah, blah. But that's the issue.
I like it. There was a suggestion about maybe doing a half-day thing for new RCs at the beginning, and maybe some of these videos we can use as prior training, much like we did the Pathable or whatever, going into next year.
Yeah, that was one thing I started to try to do this year, which was take talks that I'd done in the past that I treated as prerequisites and said, hey, watch this before you show up. I don't know how many people did. I have a feeling not very many did.
Right.
But that is a good start in the right direction.
Great. Next time, Adam. Thank you, Billy.
Hey guys. First of all, I want to say the content here was really amazing. I've been to some really super expensive conferences in my life, like $3,000 a head, and this has been by far the best and well produced, so good job. Second, regarding the location, I think it is important actually to have it here from a motivational standpoint. The fact that I could go yesterday and see a place like American Steel, and the first thing I said, oh, I want to make that's really important. Also, it's the fact of being somewhat at the birthplace of this movement. I think it's very important. I agree about the fact that it's hard to get here, especially from where I'm coming. But conference in Europe definitely sounds good, but maybe you can involve a one-day or half-day tour around these things maybe a week or two before Burning Man, when everybody's here anyways, so that could be an option to actually have a conference in Europe.
There's one maybe on the West Coast, and then so many people want to maybe there should be some regionals.
Okay, a couple more things. I spoke twice, I think, and my time to prepare was basically on my flight over the day before, because it was kind of a mess of people telling me I'm going to speak, not me. So it was, to me, it was kind of, I mean, it was still okay, but I was kind of shooting from the hip. I didn't have time to prepare much material, so that would have been nice. More ordered when it was happening. Have more materials before the conference. Basically, there was hardly anything unpassable before the conference started. I really had no idea what I was going to. It's the first time I came to this conference. I haven't heard about it until 2 months ago, and I didn't know if I was coming to a big party or to learn a lot, and I was surprised really well that I actually did learn a lot, but I had no idea what I was coming to, and it would have been nice, especially even just when I got an invitation, to know what I'm going to come to so I could decide if I want to come to or not. And I think lots of people in my community and our board maybe would have elected to come and spend the extra effort, money, and vacation days if they knew that this is what was going to happen. So somehow promote it more next time. Another thing is, important thing, how do I keep communicating with the Burning Man organization, with other regional leaders? As I'm not an RC, I don't have, I mean, there's Pathable, which I don't think it's such a great interface, and it's not going to be around that long. It's kind of hard to communicate because I have to go in there and guess who someone is. I don't have a way of actually saying, okay, I want to talk to this guy who's actually a leader in this. So it's kind of like the whole RC, non-RC thing here is a bit difficult for me to understand what I can do next. Because I'm taking this home now, and I want to bring it to my organization and do this, and okay, I heard this great talk about this, I want to contact that person, or I want someone to give me advice about financials. It would be also nice to have a list of all the regional leaders who say, okay, I'm an expert in this, I'm willing to help with this. That could really be useful. I mean, I know I have lots of skills coming from where I come from, where I'd be happy to help people understand how they can generate passive revenue for their community. I mean, there's lots of easy ways to do it. There's other leaders out here who are experts in other things, so that could really help.
Great. Everyman?
So I'm Everyman from Cleveland, Ohio. Just like Will, like I heard about 10 minutes in. I'm not sure if some of this has been covered, but I've talked to a lot of people at the conference trying to get some feedback. And one of the things that kept coming up is the most important pods, like fire safety. People would like to see those being repeated. Maybe have fire safety on a Saturday and a Sunday, so those who, it's a big choice here right now. You have 4 different things that you want to go to, and they're all fantastic. And sometimes you just pick one over fire safety, even though that's really important. You'd like to have another option to have it. Fire safety, I kept hearing that one repeatedly. That is the single easiest way for an event to get shut down. By not having a fire safety policy, and I know some burns don't have it. And that's just, I keep hearing that getting repeated. Also, I mentioned it to you, in terms of like legal and risks, liability, and insurance, I was in that pod. I talked to some of the presenters, including Recall, and I know the presenters were saying they felt really cut short, and a lot of the people that were in that pod, not presenting, the people who attended the pod felt like that could be its own track. And really, if you think about it, legal, risks, insurance, that could be its own thing. That could be an all-day thing. That's all.
Jamie?
You're touching on the idea of how we can take this to happen more frequently but not increase the cost. I think it's Burners Without Borders has a telesalon that they do monthly. Maybe taking some of the more interesting pieces of this and looking at doing that through technological solutions, because we can find time, especially when we know with enough lead time, the topics that we're interested in, the ones we can tune into. All the food across the entire weekend was great, just more bacon.
More bacon.
That was
Any
actually.
bacon sponsor, would that be like?
I am
Unbranded, of course. Canadian.
A bacon gift.
Yes, and the last thing was perhaps a talk or session that's dealing with shared equipment and property, and there's specific concerns that come around along with that.
Yeah, I want to make sure that not yet, but that conversation I think is really important that we add a little bit there to this conversation. That we'll get there.
Okay.
Okay. That's part of that piece.
Okay, next. I'm sorry, what is your name?
They call me Orgy from.
Ooh. Yeah, now I will.
Hi, so at the Department of Organizational Structures for Transformational Productions, I noticed that we had like one speaker in the front and she was sort of talking the whole time, and you know, people were yawning and all this stuff, and I was like, you know what, like this is exactly what's wrong with our society. Like we have to stop from just like listening to one person. Like everyone's attention is focused on one person. Like we have to sort of break up into groups and do our own thing, and then let that, it's going to be chaotic for a while, but like it'll sort of self-organize. And when it comes down to, you know, having conferences like this and discussions like this, like, and as our community around the globe gets bigger, not only is it going to be harder for a lot of people to just be making these trips frequently, but I think more often than not, you're going to actually have similar questions being raised over and over and over as it gets bigger, because there's, you know, as newbies come in more, they're going to have more questions, and more often than not, like questions that have already been answered in previous conferences. So I think, and I can't remember his name, but he was saying how we have to embrace technology a little bit more. So, you know, having a lot of these discussions on Google Circles, for example, would be a really good solution to that. We do that in for the Japan regionals. We would have like, you know, Google Circle conversations about some things that we have to be discussed, and then we would actually record those and just like post them on Facebook and Google, and anyone that's actually interested in those topics can like click in, and you know, if it's like a 30-minute, you know, conference or something, you can just kind of just like skip through and like see if there's anything interesting there. If it's not, then you can just like go on and move on. So I think that would be, you know, a good solution to a lot of our problems.
Cool. Okay. Duly noted.
Jim.
Quicker. Regarding location, we've had the regional contacts here, we've had the community leaders here. We've not talked about the key people who I think are with Burning Man, and that's the staff and the volunteers. And without them, we would still exist, but they work so hard. I would hate to move it from San Francisco and have staff who could not attend, or staff who could not participate. I think it's a prime area where we get to meet them, we get to see the name, we get to meet the people behind the emails, plus they get to meet us, and they get to hear us, and I think that's part of the community, and they are a key part of the community, and I would hate to move it someplace where they could not participate. The other thing is we've talked a lot today, and it's maybe not for discussion here, but a survey to streamline. We hear a lot of things people want, which would make the conference for 5 weeks, and hundreds of dollars. But I would suggest also asking the question, what did not bring value to you? So that you can start looking at those things and maybe eliminating those things, because I think we sometimes have paradigms. This is what a conference should have. So I would suggest asking that question to participants too.
Maybe an online exit for you.
Time check.
4:43.
And it goes to
5:15.
About 15. Half an hour.
Okay, I'm gonna finish the stack I have. We're gonna stop hands for now, and then we'll dive further into questions. Plaid.
Just quickly, Will had talked about getting the descriptions of the courses and stuff up there. If we could have a place where we could say why we're at the course, and I'm a beginner or I'm advanced or I have these questions. I know for other conferences I've gone to as a speaker, when you know your audience before you speak, you can serve them a lot better.
Stephen Raspa has a good process for that. You send out questions. Can you tell folks what you do for your courses?
I send a questionnaire out in advance to all the registrants, asking them what their top issues are and getting a sense of the scale of their event, their team, those sorts of things, which just helps me figure out how to gauge the content of the room. So actually, it might look like I give the same presentation each time, but I'm trying to answer the questions most commonly dealt with, and also try to stack them in the order of most frequent to least frequent challenge. I also recommend, though, leaving time for open questions, because honestly this year, not as many people filled out the questionnaires. It would have helped me as a presenter to get more feedback in advance from more people. So.
Cool. Stewart's.
I don't think I need the mic. I love the idea of having a space in Black Rock City where some of this conversation can continue. I think it would also be very useful to try to create that space in regional events as well, and to, instead of spending $350 per person to import all of us here, spend a couple of $1,000s per person to send somebody from the Burning Man Network and from the project to these events so that they can be engaged in those conversations. Be a lot cheaper. Not everybody goes to Black Rock City, so you're going to get participation in the conversation that wouldn't be possible only in Black Rock City.
Yes.
It might attract a different level or just a different population of people that would know that they were also coming to the regional events for a learning track or for
Exactly.
more intellectual discourse.
There's tons of reasons to consider doing that.
Duly noted. Felix.
Okay, so I came in late, so I don't know if you guys went over this, but I'd like to see some sort of workshop about innovations and engagement, and where, a lot of people are, when I'm listening, this is my first regional, global type thing, but a lot of people are talking about their regional events. So what about what's happening outside of that or beyond that? So some sort of workshop about innovation and engagement. I'd like to see something along those lines.
Nice. Gloria. GLORIA.
I never do that. This is just a really short comment about the fire panel and everyone wanting to go to it. I don't know if maybe prior to actually scheduling all of the events throughout the weekend, if we were all able to vote on the most important ones for us, and then making sure that those have the least amount of conflict, or that maybe they're not in conflict with anything.
Thanks, India. And one more is Mac Hall.
All these subjects are really, really important, but I think that we're missing one really important thing, and that is the party. Personally, I think the party this year was really good because we had different types of entertainment. This year we had the fire, we had live art, we had performance art, we had static art, and I think that helps bring ideas to all of us for our events as well. Because some of those things I would not have really thought of, and that can be used as a fundraiser as well. So, nice job on that.
I want to drive one question. So, talk a little bit about objectives. We've talked, I think, a lot about GLC 2014, maybe what we can do on Playa. Just a lot of great ideas up here and captured. one of the places that I'm really interested in is the global network and how it could grow, and as well as some of the peer-to-peer stuff, and also hearing about your projects. But I just wanted to see if, Thomas, if you could speak a little bit to the interregional thing and then the sister city thing that we were discussing earlier, because I think it's really important to see how we can partner, mentor, whatever for the group and explore that a little bit more. And I've got the mic to you.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Keep running. Thomas, Burning Flipside, Austin. We spent some time talking about some of the strengths of regions, regionals working together outside of the Burning Man regional network itself, because we all know who we are. We have friends, you know who you have been going to a certain party with for a while. I absolutely love the idea of meeting up at regional events. One of the things that I'm trying to do is network with everyone, and it's my responsibility that if I know I'm going to be on the East Coast, who I need to talk to, if I'm going to be up in the Midwest, who I need to talk to. But it would be really nice if we could all work together to make that easier than one person trying to remember everything. So if that's possible, that would be great. I love that idea. We do that at Flipside. We have regionals mixtures, and the idea is for folks who are coming to Flipside, we let them know this is where it's going to be, this is where we're doing it, we host it, and folks come in and talk. And we have folks from anyone who's coming in to Flipside, and the people who come from around the world, and they get together and they talk and they hash out stuff, come up with ideas, and I'll see you at the burn, and that's the plan. That is probably the best way to maximize all of our time and effort, because a lot of people are driving everywhere or flying everywhere. But whenever you go somewhere, there's something to find, there's some place to be. And so I don't know if there is because I'm not a regional contact. I'm sure you've heard it a million times. LLC people, other community leader people, but we're not plugged into that. We don't know what that is. And we're traveling all the time for the daytime jobs. We're traveling all the time for a concert, to just go visit family. And that's the kind of thing where if you can take some time out, that'd be fantastic. Go for it.
So to follow up on this, it's something that I've seen this weekend, talking to a lot of people about in the production track.
Who you are?
I'm positive Burning Flipside. So, we do have this with our community in Texas. We share this information for regionals, and we share a lot of our infrastructure and org chart information and model that after each other. And that's something we need to help facilitate. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of people asking me, what's your org chart? That's really interesting. How do you do this? How do you do your city planning? How do you do your placement? How do you do this? So we're not reinventing the wheel over and over and over, because it wastes time, it wastes money, it wastes resources, and it stresses people out. And we can avoid a lot of that reinventing of the wheel that helps. So something that's come up a couple times this weekend is the idea of having each event have a kind of a regional liaison for logistics. So if somebody from a regional has a question about how other regionals do that, they can reach out to that person from each of these events to share that information. So that person will know how to get that, who to ask for that information, and get it back to them. So it's just, rather than having so many people try to contact each other, you've got each event has somebody that's kind of in charge of helping share that information. Those kind of organizational things. Because I think that can reduce a lot of the time, we come here, we don't have to be talking about some of that. We can be talking about the more global ideas of things rather than the event-specific ideas. And sharing more of that information is important.
I was hoping that you were going to speak to kind of that. You've got a couple of events in Texas that are starting to share more information, and now you're starting to share that potentially with.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to go all the way back.
I think it's interesting.
Okay. I was very lucky.
Super deep, but just
yeah, sure. I was very lucky to be able to talk about the social enterprise over there yesterday. Marion wanted to talk about it. You wanted to talk about it. Stephen Ross, you want to talk about it. And I spent about 2.5 hours talking about legal logistics stuff and organizational entities and structures with Brooke, and that blew my mind. That was really fun. and I think she enjoyed it. Here's the thing. Everything that, as I see it, that the Burning Man project is doing right now is something that we've already started working on as far as intra-regional sharing of assets, resources, planning, logistics, conversations, communications, and because we don't mean to, and intentionally don't mean to compete with the regionals network, we worked with our regional and then-regional folks and did it within the state of Texas, because we figure we can do that within our local community. And the idea is, for instance, burnout and volunteers. You don't want to compete with another regional when you know your volunteers are going to come at this time of year to this one, and then they're going to go do their regular thing, and then they're going to go burn somewhere else, and then they're in, etc. So what we try to do is plan our calendars, plan our training, and then maximize volunteer potential so that people can go and volunteer in one event and work really hard. And then the off-season folks are totally chilling out and not doing all that much. And then flip later on in the calendar when they go to the opposite ones. But they all train together, they all plan together, they all know who they are. And when stuff gets heavy and that happens, people can very quickly put on a shirt and go help. That's easy because you've already built in a large volunteer pool who are just chilling out at the other event. So, or being part of the problem. Now, this also includes assets. We're trying to come out, and again, this is that state thing. When you cross state boundaries, and Lakes and Fire knows what I'm talking about, when you're dealing with logistics, hardware, ownership of assets, and you're trying to share stuff across state lines, etc., it gets into something of a legal morass, but it's totally manageable. And that's what Brooke and I were discussing at length. I think it's a good idea to find the burns around you that are usefully located for some reason, be it a major rail line, be it a port, because you can ship containers around. If an interstate goes through you, that's pretty good too. If it's a place that your people like to go to, if you like to go to some event in particular, folks on the East Coast, you go up and down maybe, I don't know, right? In Texas, we go everywhere because we're kind of in the middle. And that's just the United States. In the global scale, obviously there are going to be other patterns that are going to organize by themselves. But because those patterns have organized, you should use those patterns. When you walk to a field and the trails are already cut, now they're your sidewalk. And that's exactly the kind of way your assets should be shared, your information should be spread, because that foundation is already there and the people are already talking. So think about that from that perspective, and then try to come up with ways to, without encumbering yourself in that liability mess, or like this LLC is going to do that, that LLC doesn't believe in this or whatever. It's still possible to change how you're doing things so that things can be shared, ideas can be shared, and volunteers can be shared. And if more volunteers are encouraged, and the barrier to entry to volunteering is so low, there's so many people around who can help you, you're not reinventing the wheel, you're not alone. What's going to happen at 2 in the morning when the shit hits the fan? Then you get more of everything, and then all ships rise.
So, Misha, they're now talking to Spain too, right? So the language affinity.
So yeah, this is okay. So this is an interesting one. Stuart and Diana, I don't know if you're here. Okay. Well, one of the things that's really interesting about the adopt a burn notion, Lala did a wonderful presentation this morning, Athena, and they were talking about the Los Angeles League of Arts. They adopted the Korea burn. I thought that was awesome. The regions, the way we do our regional stuff in the state of Texas is it's more like a partnership. We're not adopting each other in sort of like a child-parent relationship. It's not about size, all that kind of thing. The idea is we're peers and we all have problems and we all have similar things to deal with. It's just a matter of scale, but that happens. So the problem is that, as I understood when we were discussing stuff, in Spain, you have the Anglophone folks coming in, and the parallel that I drew was Vermont trying to grow a local region of burners, and the Boston folks go to Vermont all the time. So the Boston people already have their community, and then they go to Vermont, and the Vermonters are trying to build their own thing somehow, but they're not a part of Boston, they're in Vermont. And in Spain, you know, the Anglophones, Germanophones going down into Spain, there's language barrier, cultural barriers, different mores, normative things that are just different. And frankly, the California-centric view of burning has to be adapted globally. And I can tell you that California and Texas are very different. I mean, everybody knows that. George Bush. So that said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to engage the other half of the state. You know, we have El Paso. I come from South Texas. You know, it's a border area. So you have the same concepts of sort of like the northern Anglophones from Northern Europe, or in this case, the northern tiers of America, going down into the south. The other half of the state also wants to burn. Entirely different paradigms, entirely different approaches to things, but the power is there. And in that diversity is the strength that we're all working on globally. And that's just in my backyard. So what we're wanting to do is partner with the Texas Burn event coordinators, like the regionals of Texas, and we want to partner with Barcelona and have you all work with us, because I think a lot of what you're going to be working on with language, cultural issues, translation, just stuff, is stuff that El Paso wants to work on, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, the Rio Grande Valley, if I can do anything about it, and then Austin. So that's what I was talking about.
I know there's a lot of hands. You go and we'll figure it out.
Okay, I just wanted to make a quick point. We're talking about the regional events not really having the same kind of contact with the regional contacts do. How many people have heard of a Yahoo group called the Burning Ring of Fire?
On it.
Yeah. It's a group that you should, if you're not already on it, it's worth doing. It's a lot of event organisers from around the world, and it's kind of just a place to hang out and ask questions. And it's quite quiet a lot of the time, but it can be very useful from time to time. I just wanted to highlight that.
What is it?
It's called the Burning Ring of Fire. It's a Yahoo group for regional event organisers.
Very quickly, there's also a Burning Man Regional Community Group on Facebook that has similar conversations.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got that captured.
Hey, here, Chicago.
Burning Man Regional.
What I'd like to see happen is more cooperation. A program I envision being called Fly and Build. I have apparently too much free time because I go to a lot of events. And if it's local, it's one thing. I can throw an order in my car and on and off. But if I have to fly someplace, then I can't fly with my art, I can't fly with materials. I want to be able to fly in before the event, a day or two early, find a place to build a project and participate. And what that would include is that each region before an event would put somebody in a lead for finding housing, finding a shop. You know, you could have volunteers that would help you with your project. Locally, you buy your materials, people would know where to get the best deals on the materials, the use of tools, to make it easy, so that everybody participates, everybody learns, and that kind of thing can be spread as a global or throughout our network.
All of that pretty much happens at nowhere already. We do a lot of that kind of big art support group, come 10 days early to the site, maybe or a week early to the site, people come and build projects like that. So that is something that we do.
Okay, so there's talk of how to have this continuing education or reach out more than just this one conference. So I've talked to a bunch of city planning people who thought, oh, it'd be fun to get a bunch of us together to talk about how we do thinking management, city planning stuff. And that's a little easier because that's a smaller number of people. If you just have 2 people from each of them kind of going out to talk about that, that's a smaller crowd. So you can do one location maybe for the whole United States or something to talk about that. But something Thomas was saying about how we have that cross training for safety, so they can plug in at any event. What he's referring to there is that we have a Flipside hosts a event called Safety Side, which is where we do ranger, fire, and medic, sanctuary training. That then is for all 3 of that same training. And we have 100+ people show up just from our state for that.
So that's something for other regions to consider. You know, and smaller states could have multi-state ones like that, where they're all doing that same kind of safety training, or they're doing the same kind of smaller regional conferences to talk about some subject like that. There's a lot more interested in it, and that really, really helps us. And those kind of things have made us more prepared for events that don't have as much training. When those other people that are there know how to react if there's an emergency or some other situation, that really helps.
So a lot of this conversation has been event-centric. I'm curious about your places and bringing civic art, civic projects, anything like that else, or, you know, and that may or may not be aligned with the transformative event that you produce. But I'm curious about your cities or your towns right now, and any conversation or projects that you might be wanting to do. Here and
Nothing so far, but just as a way of praise, I think a lot of us, especially in Boston, were incredibly inspired by the LA presentation this morning at Athena. So now we want to do stuff like that. We don't know what yet, but we're going to think about it.
And I'm actually thinking about all the value that we have. Oh, Bobalicious, Denver. All the value that we have to share for each other. And next year at Burning Man and everywhere, maybe there could be a time slot. I think there's going to be a lot more videos next year about all the regions. And if we could schedule like maybe, you know, movie time where everyone's going to show their video for a half hour, like Flipside gets a half hour, Jay gets a half hour, show their video and do talks so the community can come back and ask these questions. You know, so like movie night next year, Thursday and Friday night, 7 to midnight, every half hour on your region, share information, so that regionals, community leaders can ask community leaders, you know, about their specific event.
Is that on Playa or as part of
I
the
think it can happen on the playa, but it can also happen here.
Mac?
Oh, I actually just had a question. I mean, we have the regional network, you know, where we can all post comments, questions, problems, whatever. Is there any way to get the community leaders involved in maybe something similar through kind of like the official page?
That's a great question. I think that Full Path Law with varying degrees of effectiveness is really meant to be the place where we can get these community leaders here. It's really a matter of management of systems and databases, and then how do we qualify people. So for us, it's been RCs have access to a certain level of information, but then part of our programming for this conference was really to crack that, you know, format much wider and make it so that a lot of different folks could participate. So I don't have an easy answer to that. I think it's a manpower thing, honestly. Zoltan.
Your question was about specifically about civic initiatives as opposed to.
Curious about taking it back to your home.
Yeah, I think, well, for us, I think what's happening is it's all about your life cycle and where you are, and it goes back to that financial planning, because we're in a place now where we're starting to have some money. You know, we have about 15 grand in the bank, and we're going to start getting more and more money in the bank, and that's by spending a lot of money at our events on our grants and things like that as well. We just have the surplus now, and I'm not sure about this whole money thing still, and some information for me, but what I want to do with it is I want to figure out a way to plan financially to put that money back in the community with some of these initiatives. And I was very inspired by the walk to the bridge, and just by the festival and that was going on this Friday. And these are some of the things that, like, yeah, I would love to see in our home cities. We'll have started having the money to do it, but we have to plan for that with our nonprofit now to make sure that stuff happens and that money gets spent responsibly.
Right next to you. Thank you. Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. Go ahead.
Okay. And there's one more thing that we're wanting to work on. How many people heard Amy Bunker's presentation last year on intra-regional art? Do you all recall that? Yep. That's one of the things that we're also trying to work on. The idea is to maximize the energy that's gone into an art piece, something that has happened on the flip side and has been on display at Pyropolis should go to Transform Us. You know, it should go nowhere. And actually, some plug in Texas are working on that.
Good.
And what we want to do is have something leave our temporary city and go to another temporary city, and then go to a city and be there temporarily, and then burn it. And we want to receive that too. So I've discussed that with some of our burners folks in Austin. We're working on trying to make that possible. But to other regional folks, let's talk, because I'd like to help facilitate in any way that we can to get your art here and then go into Austin. Go to Pyropolis, which is what Flipside creates, and then go to Austin. And then conversely, we want to send our art to you and have that somewhere else. So that's where burning can happen everywhere. And we've had wonderful luck with that, with the Clock Tower burn at Auditorium Shores of the, New Year's Eve in Austin. That was epic. And I really cannot overstate how you can affect your communities and make a name for yourselves within those communities to help find more people to affect change.
Cool, so I think it's
Corey.
and then
Jamie.
Hi. I don't know if this was covered, but, as we're going and we're talking about bringing art to the events, I'd also like for us to cover next year bringing art to your town.
Yes.
And putting in temporary art in your town, how did you guys get it into Oakland? It took 5 years or something, and an extremely long time, and hopefully the first one's always the hardest, so you guys develop the wheel, and then we can share the wheel with everybody, and we don't have to reinvent it. Thank you.
yeah, keep building a base now where we've got some examples we can point at for Reno and Oakland.
Spectacular case study.
Yeah,
Great case study.
yeah, that's great.
Okay, and Jamie, last comment.
So in regards to the idea of transporting vertical art, I think Core has shown a good path forward of do as much of your work as you can off-site, so you're not cutting, you're not moving on fly. Looking though at the idea of transporting it by train, designing your art so that it's built to be on pallet. You can package it up, it's a lot easier to ship, and the train infrastructure is one of the best things we have as far as cost and transportability. And we already know that there's a nice depot that's very close to Black Rock City that can work with it. So it probably takes a little bit of a shift of getting that message out to then start thinking not only to design your materials for how easy it is to assemble, but for disassembly and transportation in the size and structure of how you build those things.
You can send a suitcase.
Wonderful. Well, we're gonna wrap up. This was a great brainstorming session. Obviously, it's really good to do this when your minds are still fresh. And we didn't get to cover or you're full of conference, fodder. Really, what we didn't get to go to, which I'd love to continue after this, is feedback about the attempt to group things, the learning tracks, and areas of development. Some of them did come up. I know there was the legal track, one about managing community spaces, but I want to hear a lot more so that we can continue to hone in the content and evolve it each year so that people keep coming back. Thank you. This was really wonderful. Thank you, Dre, for so amazingly scribing. Did you guys see, the pictures?